Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wa usalli wa usallam ala Sayyid al-awwaleen wal akhirin Nabiyyina Muhammadin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa barak wa sallam. All praise are due to Allah, Lord of the worlds, and peace and blessings be constantly showered upon our beloved Prophet Muhammad, the master of the first and the last, and his family, his companions, and all those who call to his way and establish his sunnah to the day of judgment. My beloved brothers and sisters, to our friends, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Alhamdulillah, we're continuing on with our new Muslim corner. And despite the weather, we're in the north, and winter has finally really set in. But despite that, inshallah, we will continue on with the class, even if we have to slightly repeat certain aspects for the benefit of those who may have missed them. We are looking at the dimensions of Islam. And this is structured especially for those who have recently embraced Islam, for those who are reviving their faith. It is structured in a way where you could ask questions and you can have some practical examples. And alhamdulillah, Allah has blessed the Muslim world with great scholars and a lot of information. So we actually can go back through our records and bring forward practical suggestions and explanations of definitions that make things easy. Today there's a tendency for people to listen to a name and they are told by somebody, this name is good or this name is bad. They don't investigate. But for the new Muslim, we need to have sound knowledge, and especially we need a balanced approach. So we're not going to one extreme or another extreme. Extremism is one of the challenges for the Muslims, for all human beings, but especially for our nation. Extremism is a very dangerous thing, and we need to try to be what is called the middle nation, which is the balanced way of approaching things. And in looking at dimensions, we recognized from the hadith of Jibreel, and you can remember that there were 3 dimensions. Can anybody in my class here remember what these dimensions are to get people involved in the class? What is the first dimension the angel Jibreel asked the Prophet? He said, what? Tell me about?
5 pillars.
But what is the word? It's the 5 pillars.
Tell me what Iman.
The first one.
Ihsan. What's your religion? Islam.
Islam.
Oh.
So the basis is Islam. Okay? And we can sort of make an example of Islam. Islam is like your body. Okay, it's like the body. So the body has to do functions. It has to be taken care of. And so the body, you're expressing your Islam through prayers. One of the main ways to do that is to purify yourself and constantly make prayer. And then also that you give in charity, and especially if you have extra wealth, you pay the zakat, the extra amount. And then when Ramadan comes, you fast in Ramadan from dawn to sunset. So this is physical thing, right? It's your body. It's what the actions, all Muslims do these actions. And the 5th pillar is to make pilgrimage to Mecca once in a lifetime. And you'll go to Mecca and you'll see all types of Muslims there on the pilgrimage. So that's the body of Islam, okay? And to understand these aspects and more, things how you eat and how you dress, the scholars developed a science they call fiqh. Fiqh. And fiqh means understanding. So it's basically what's your understanding of Islam, of how to practice Islam. Okay, so that's the basic body. The second pillar, as we found out, is Iman. And Iman, now you are moving, to a higher stage there where your iman, is dealing with, in a sense, your beliefs. Because iman means your belief. So in a sense, iman is sort of like your head, your ideology. What do you believe in? So you have the body, and then you have your ideology. The scholars developed a science that is called aqidah. You'll eventually hear the word aqidah, which means what are your beliefs? Okay? So your aqidah, this is the way your belief in Allah and His angels and His books and the last day, divine destiny, all of these aspects of your faith is your aqidah. And the third part is Ehsan, and that is righteousness. And you could say the Ehsan is your heart. So the dimensions is the body, the head or the mind, and then the heart. These are the three dimensions. And in order to develop or to understand Ihsan, many of the scholars developed a science that you could call tasawwuf, or today they say Sufism. Other scholars did not necessarily use that term, and they said Ihsan, and many have used the term tazkiyah. Tazkiyah. So you say tazkiyah to nafs, purifying yourself. Okay? So you have your actions you're doing as a Muslim, you have your beliefs behind it, and then you have to purify. You have to have your heart. What's your conscience? What is the spiritual aspect? You see? Which influences everything. That is the completion. So whether you call it tasawwuf or Sufism or tazkiyah, it goes back to the word al-ihsan. And that is confirmed. That is in the hadith. So definitely, for those who may disagree with the word Sufism because of the extremism that we found out that came into this concept, Ihsan is the terminology. Okay? So in the time of the great scholars of fiqh and aqidah, and one of the greatest ones was Imam Malik ibn Anas, rahimahullah. He was the Imam in Medina. And his book of Hadith al-Muwatta is the first authentic book of the sayings of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, before Bukhari and Muslim, is al-Muwatta of Imam Malik. And that is what is called the Maliki school of fiqh. Okay, and in his time, which is coming in the Tabi'een time, so it's at the third generation down, and in his time, Tasawwuf was not a group of people. Like you wouldn't say, that's a Sufi Muslim, a Salafi, that's this, that. No, there's none of that. It's just Muslims. Okay, so, but the word is starting to come in. Some are using it for Ihsan. Everybody knew about Ihsan. And the Prophet, peace be upon him, said, Ihsan is to worship Allah as though you see Him or He sees you. Right? So it's that consciousness of Islam that is coming in. Okay? So Imam Malik, when this word tasawwuf is coming in, so people are now using terminologies. So they're saying fiqh, and they're saying tasawwuf, and aqidah, tafsir, to explain the Quran, nahu, the grammar of Arabic, adab, for literature, all these different subjects. And this is what you study in Islamic University. When I studied in Medina University, these are our subjects. The same way people have chemistry and biology and math, whatever. These are our subjects. Fiqh, aqidah, tafsir, adab, nahu. These are literally the subjects that you take when you study in an Islamic university. So the Imam said, whoever occupies himself with fiqh, so he focuses on the body alone, right? And does not pass through a process of training in tasawwuf will become a sinner. So he said, whoever focuses only on the body, like only on the written word, and does not deal with the spiritual part, then that person is in danger of becoming a fasiq. They could become a sinner because they know everything, but their heart is so cold. They don't have the spirit of Islam. See, so you have to have the letter of the deen and the spirit of the deen. So that's how the Imam looked at that. Okay, من تفقه ولم يتصوف فقد تفسق. This is how he said it. Then the next part he said, whoever occupies himself with tasawwuf. Okay, so they're only dealing with the spiritual things and does not learn the religious sciences will become a heretic. So if somebody's only dealing with spirituality, but they're not dealing with the religion, the actual sciences of the religion, that person can actually start doing things that's outside of Islam. And we found that when Islam spread to the land of the Hindus and the Buddhists and the Christians, that other ways of life impacted Muslims. So a person could be actually acting like a Buddhist monk. And you have seen Buddhist monks sitting on the side of the road with a cup, and he's just meditating. And they believe they're going to kill their body. They're going to destroy their self, their nafs. And if they can destroy their nafs, they have no desire for the world. And if you have no desire for the world, then you can be spiritual. That's extremism. That's monkism. And Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, said, no monkism in Islam. So Imam Malik is saying, if you're only going to do the spiritual part and you don't know your fiqh, you don't understand your deen, you're in danger of becoming a zindiq, which is like kafir, it's extreme heretic. Okay, but then he said, whoever combines the two will have attained the truth. وَمَنْ جَمَعَ بَيْنَهُمَا فَقَدْ تَحَقَّقَ. Whoever combines the two, that is the fiqh and the tasawwuf, the ihsan. So you combine them, right? Then that person has the true reality. So that is a balanced approach to dealing with ihsan. And those scholars of tasawwuf, of ihsan, who were in the cautious, sober part, you will see immediately, and I'm talking about Imam Junaid and Imam al-Ghazali and Sidi Ahmed Zarruq of Morocco. You'll see scholars like this, al-Muhasibi, that these are balanced scholars. These are scholars they call faqih, which means they're masters of fiqh. Okay? And they are the ones who give us this balanced approach. And that is what we're interested in. Now, one of the students even said, now, can we get some examples of this balanced approach? We want something practical. So I want to bring you a scholar who is very interesting, and interesting in the sense that the time that he lived in is not far from our time. And he was born in 1754, actually. And for 20 years, he studied the religion, and he became a faqih. He became a master of fiqh, right? So that's the religious sciences, at 20 years old. Okay? And between 1774 to 1804, he spent his time as a young teacher traveling around his land and teaching about Islam. Now, Sheikh Uthman Danfodio, he lived in a place called Bilad al-Hausa. This is Hausa land. And again, this will be interesting for some students who have never really studied African scholars. So most of our scholars may come from Persia or come from Arab lands. Maybe from India you might get some, if you got that background. Possibly Turkey, but you don't normally get, as famous scholars, you will not get many Turkish. You won't get many like Chechnya or Dagestan or Indonesia. You probably never even heard of Indonesian scholars. Okay, so, but there were scholars. So this is an example in West Africa. Hausa land would be present-day Nigeria, northern part of Nigeria, and Niger, and parts of Chad and the desert region. It's not just one country. It's a very large area there. These are the Hausa people. Hausa language is one of the largest languages in Africa. And another group that mixed with the Hausa people are called Fulani, or the Fula. And these people were nomadic people. They tended to cows. And they traveled all around with their cows. Hausa people were agricultural people. And so the two mixed together because the people who had the cows, they could give you manure, right, in order to fertilize the land. They also give milk from their cows. Sometimes they would sacrifice and give you meat. And then there is leather and other things that comes from the cows. The people in agriculture, they have all of your agricultural products. So they blended together. But what was interesting about the Fulani people is that they also had traveling scholars with them. As their caravans spread, there would always be a group in the caravan whose life is dedicated to scholarship. They're also nomads, but they become experts in Islamic studies. And they are taking the tradition coming out of places like Mauritania in West Africa, and then also up into Algeria and Morocco. That's Maliki. So the same traditions, they are part of that cycle of traditions. Okay, the Fulani scholars and the Hausa. So Sheikh Uthman Danfodio was part of this group. He's a very interesting person. His mother was a scholar. His father was a scholar. His uncles were all scholars. And so he literally lived in a moving village of ulama. So his whole life really is dedicated to scholarship. And so it was in 1774, and I'm just giving you sort of a glimpse of his life before we go into these teachings, is in this time that he lectured as a young scholar. He went out, he traveled all around Hausa lands, huge place. He traveled around teaching the people and talking to the common people, talking to the scholars, talking to the kings, because there were kings at the time. Some of them had normally become Muslim, but only in words. So he was lecturing to everybody. And he was approaching the different issues that they had. Now, it reached a point that by 1802, he was so popular that when he traveled from one city to another, or one village to another, 1,000 students traveled with him. Think about this. 1,000 students going through the desert. And when he stops, that becomes like a village. Okay, and so he was really getting popular. And the kings, in the way kings are, got jealous. They thought he was getting too powerful. And one of them, the king of Gobert, he invited him to a ceremony, and he tried to assassinate him. And some reports even say they had this rudimentary gun, and one of his courtiers brought it out and tried to shoot the sheikh with the gun. But it backfired and shot him. Right? So after that, Sheikh Uthman then left the king, and he made a hijrah. Remember, he follows the sunnah exactly in his life. So he made a hijrah to a place called Gudu, just like Prophet Muhammad ﷺ made migration, remember, from Mecca to Medina. So he made a hijrah, and his followers came from everywhere to make hijrah to this village. And they chose him as Amir al-Mu'mineen, that he would be the Amir, the leader of their Jamaat or their group. And they took a pledge to him as the leader. Okay? And so now the numbers start to rise. And in the same way that the Prophet was attacked, the kings gathered a big force and they attacked in around 1804 This is when they attacked his people. And they attacked from different places. The Sheikh, his forces were ill-equipped. They were poor people living, wherever they could, not warriors really, but they stood for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and Allah gave them victory. So this battle is sort of, you could call the Battle of Badr. Okay, and you'll study Islamic history to know that Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, when he migrated to Medina, he was also attacked, and he had a great victory. So that was like the Battle of Badr for Sheikh Uthman Dan Fodio, and his enemies were completely routed. Okay, so the word started to spread all throughout Hausa land, and the word started to spread. He sent letters to the kings, and Prophet Muhammad sent letters to the kings as well, the kings of Arabia, the kings of the world. So Sheikh Uthman sent letters to the people all around, not only Hausa land, but West Africa, Central Africa, the Sahara region. He sent scholars around to let them know that the purpose of his struggle, the purpose of his jihad, and he used these terms, was not a military purpose. This is not a struggle for power, but it was to secure the victory for truth over falsehood. And the essence of his struggle was to revive the Sunnah. It was to revive the Sunnah and to suppress bid'ah. And that's a term that you'll learn later on too. Bid'ah is innovations. Like if somebody comes along and said, they don't want 5 salat, they want 6. So that would be bid'ah. So this is what he let people know. That's the essence of what the struggle is. People joined his group by the thousands. And after a period of time, they were able to take over 250,000 square kilometers. This is a huge territory. They were able to take over this territory. Remember now, this is 1804, and going up to around 1810, they took over this territory and they governed it according to the laws of Islam. That's not a long time ago. And it lasted, the Sokoto Caliphate, it lasted for 100 years until the British came in their conquest. They divide and conquer. We're still living in this colonial rule. And they divided and they conquered. And after 100 years, they were able to conquer it. But the teachings of Sheikh Uthman Dan Fodio, rahimahullah, they are still practiced by people today. So up until now, in this land, Bilad al-Hausa, the people are actually still following his teachings. And the Sultan of Sokoto, this is a northern part of Nigeria, the Sultan is one of his descendants, and is carrying the flag, of the Sheikh itself, of Sheikh Uthman Dan Fodio. So this is a scholar now. Again, as I said, he was born in 1754. After 20 years, he became faqih. He was a master of Maliki fiqh. So that's his base, right? So he's a master of fiqh. And he started teaching. And he taught for 30 years in the field. And then he was attacked by the kings, the corrupted kings. His people, they made hijrah, they defeated their enemies, and they opened up 250,000 square kilometers. And they governed it with Sharia. That's something that a lot of people don't know. So if you ever have a chance to travel to Nigeria, people think of Nigeria, they think of people who are hustlers and they're going to do a trick on you, or Nigeria. The northern part, most northern Nigerians, they don't even leave the country. There are hardly any people of the Hausa and Fulani here, right? Because they live in the lands of Islam. And if you go there to their lands now, you will see women wearing hijab, adhans outside, people practicing Islam. You will see an amazing thing right now in the northern part of Nigeria, in Niger, in parts of Chad, in Ghana, in all that region. It is still a land of Islam, and it is getting stronger and stronger by the day. And the essence of their teachings are coming from Sheikh Uthman bin Fodio. Okay, so this is, a new era that had happened. Now, the interesting part about Sheikh Uthman bin Fodio is that he considered Ihsan, he used the word tasawwuf. So he considered tasawwuf to be Ihsan. And we discussed the concept of the three parts of the hadith of Jibreel. The body, when Jibreel asked, what is Islam? Okay, that's your body, your practices. Then he asked, what is Iman? That's your belief, your aqidah, right? That's your belief. Then he asked, what is Ihsan? So Ihsan is your heart. That's the spiritual part of Islam. So the complete practice of Islam needs to have all three and not to get caught in one or another. And Imam Malik, rahimahullah, the great scholar of Islam, made it clear, don't get into one extreme or another. Don't only practice your fiqh and you don't have any spirituality. Don't do that. But also, do not practice spirituality without fiqh. Do not do it. And so Sheikh Uthman bin Fodio was one of those scholars who combined both aspects. So he was considered to be a Maliki faqih, and also in the Qadiri tariqah, he was considered to be one of the leading people in the Qadiriyah. Now, why I'm bringing him to show you, again, this is practical teachings of balanced ihsan. Because we need something practical, right, to come out of this, to help us for the new Muslims and those reviving their faith. The last part of the career of the Sheikh, the first part, right, was his teachings. He taught, did dawah for 30 years. Then he was attacked. It was military. So for 6 years or so, they took over the Hausa land, and then they governed it. And then at 1810, he then said to the leaders of the Muslims, I'm finished leading. You decide who's going to be the leader. And he spent the last 5 years of his life teaching. So no desire for power, although he was the Amir and he had all the power. And it is in the last stage that he started to teach the people who knew fiqh, only the people who had a high level of fiqh. Then he began to teach them higher levels of ihsan. So he did a book which is called Kitab At-Tafriqah. And it's called Kitab, he wrote 150 books. And he did a book called Kitab At-Tafriqah بين علم التصوف للتخلق وعلم التصوف للتحقق ومداخل إبليس. So the book is called The Difference, the Separation or the Difference Between the Knowledge of Tasawwuf for character building, and the knowledge of Tasawwuf to gain the true reality of Allah, that's the higher level, and the entrances of shaitan to the hearts of people. That's the name of his book. So it's from this book that I'm going to give you some of the teachings, so you can see how we're going to deal with this thing. Because what we're talking about really is character building. Okay, so your heart, and coming from your heart, the spirituality, and this is what he used. He used this character building to build his students, and they developed into armies, they developed into administrators, and they ruled over 250,000 square kilometers for 100 years till the British came. They ruled, and up until now, their people are still there, and they're coming back. Okay, that's how powerful his teachings were. And so he ended his career there and passed away then. And it's interesting because he passed away, he was 63 years old when he died. That's the age of the Prophet ﷺ. Like he loved Sunnah so much that his whole life is like following Sunnah, right? And he even died, at 63 years old. So these are some of the practical teachings of Ehsan. And the premise is that remember the parts of the body now. Remember the body, the mind, that's your fiqh, right? Your body is your Islam. Your heart is your Ihsan. What is your heart? Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, said, إِنَّ فِي الْجَسَدِ مُدْغَةً إِذَا صَلَحَتْ صَلَحَ الْجَسَدُ كُلُّهُ. He said, in the body there is a lump of flesh. If it goes right, the whole body is right. And if it goes wrong, the whole body is corrupted. And that is the heart. It's your heart. So what is your heart? When Muslims were lining up for prayers, the Prophet said, make your line straight, shoulder to shoulder, so the shaitan does not, so your hearts will not become divided. What does that mean? Like it's not just a physical thing, it's like some spiritual that's in us, right? One companion came to the Prophet ﷺ and asked him about birr. I asked him some righteousness, give me some guidance, and the Prophet said, istafti qalbak. He said, ask your heart. You want an answer? I'm not going to give you an answer. You ask your heart, man. You see? What is the heart? It's like your conscience. It's like your conscience. Your taqwa develops your conscience. These are all the spiritual parts of us. And that is connected ultimately to ar-ruh, your soul. Okay, so from the soul, and it's hard to quantify these things, but that's the spiritual part of a human being. All right, so that your heart is a key issue. And what is interesting is that for a long time, people thought that human beings were controlled by their brain. The brain is like your hard drive, and it tells your heart how much to pump, it tells your body what to do. But now they're recognizing that your heart is actually connected to the brain. And the heart is the only part of the body that literally has life force in it. It's life force. No other part of the body has this life force but the heart. Okay? And many of the decisions that people make are made with your heart, not with your brain. So the Prophet said to that companion, he didn't say, if you want the answer, think about it. Right? Go back to your brain. He said, ask your heart. You see? So the heart is critical. And you're going to see, when you go through traditions, you'll see how important, the heart actually is. Right? Qalb or qulub is the plural. That is really part of the essence of the person. So there are certain areas of the purification of the heart. And this is where the scholars agree. Whether you use the word tasawwuf or Sufism, or whether you use the word tazkiyah. So you'll see people who don't use the word Sufism, but for ihsan they will say tazkiyah to nafs. Purifying yourself. Okay? So whichever word that you want to use to describe it, okay, it all comes back to ihsan. And it all comes back to your heart. And that is critical in our lives. So in terms of tazkiyah, okay, and again, I put here that tasawwuf for the Sheikh was reformation of the character to affect social interrelations and then reform society. So in other words, you build the character of people, and that affects relationships, and then you actually change society. See what he was doing, right? He's building a movement. So he builds the movement from ground up. And that is the problem with a lot of movements. People join the movement and, they demonstrate and whatever, they like it, they like the clothes, they like the talk, but they don't know really why they're doing it. Right? Inside of themselves, they're not really totally motivated to do this thing. So if the issue is over, if the demonstration is over, then they go back to their regular life. Because they haven't really made internal change, right? The internal change. So this is critical for Islamic revolution. And scholars of Islamic revolution or Islamic change have discussed this. Our revolution is not from top down. Our revolution, Marxist, Leninist, the socialists, they go from top down. They will take over the government, take over the TV station the minute they say, now your government has changed. Right? Muslims don't do that. We don't believe in just doing coup d'etat. No, ours starts with a popular movement on the ground. Right? Building the consciousness in the society, and that develops and develops, and then it pressurizes the top to change. This is a political concept now. It's a concept of revolution, right? Right? And that's what we call grassroots. That's a term we use today, the grassroots revolution, which means the masses, the people. You start with the people and then you work up. Okay? So the tazkiyat al-qalb, purifying, what are some of the concepts? There's a number of concepts, but I want to just isolate 5 of them to give you some examples of what Sheikh Uthman Danfodio was talking. Because people want to know, okay, what's practical about this? He said, like, you have different issues, and you want to purify it. You have to identify it, and one of them is urjub. Okay, I'm going to start with the second one, because that's the easy, that's the clearest one. It's kibr. Okay, kibr is pride. And pride is a very deep thing. People are proud of their color. They're proud of that they're tall. I'm not short. They're proud of their language. Right? They're proud of the country they come from. Some foolish Muslims are even proud of their passport. They think that because they have a certain passport, although their cousin lives across the border with another passport. But pride, it's something that builds up inside of the people. Pride is a dangerous thing. And the best example of pride is the shaitan, wal iyadhu billah. Because when Iblis actually refused to bow down to Adam, remember, he bowed down because Adam, you're made from clay and I'm made from fire. He's like proud, right? He's arrogant, takabbur, right? Or kibr. This is pride. And this is a dangerous quality. It destroys everything. And the Sheikh looked at that and said, you first have to recognize, why are you proud? If you want to purify yourself of pride, then why are you proud? Are you proud because of how you look? That's going to go. Because the older you get, and when time goes by, eventually you're not going to look the same like you did when you were a teenager. So that's going to go. Your money's going to go. So why are you really proud? You see, you have to investigate these aspects of being proud. And there are some people who are even proud, and this is special for our community. There's some people who are proud because they're in special families. So they say, I am Sharif. You heard these terms before? Sayyid. They say, I'm Sayyid, right? You heard that before, right? They say, I'm Sharif, which means I'm from the family of Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. I'm a Sayyid. Okay? And they're proud of this Sayyid thing. But you have to recognize that blood alone is not enough. Because Abu Lahab, who is called by the Quran the father of the flames, he is the uncle of the Prophet. So he is Hashimi. He has the blood, but he's burning in hell. So his blood was not enough. You see? I've seen a case. This is a practical case. I'll be honest with you, of a practical case. I don't want to say what country it is. But there was a Muslim sister. This is a real case here in Toronto. And she was from a Sayyid family. Or she said the Sayyid. And she was working in Burger King. And she met a young man He's Guyanese, but he was Guyanese Portuguese. That's different, right? That's not regular Guyanese that you might know. So he's Guyanese Portuguese, right? So he's white, right? He's Portuguese, but he's Guyanese. Okay? And he was working in the Burger King. And they fell in love. But she had enough taqwa, faith, and consciousness to say, I'm not just going to do a girlfriend-boyfriend thing. So she heard about the classes I had before for new Muslims. It was like a new Muslim corner, right? This is before we had an office on St. Clair. And she brought him to the class. And, you know, he sat in the class and took some time, and eventually he accepted Islam. Really nice person. And then one day later, he came to me and he was really upset, almost crying. And I said, like, what happened to you, man? And he said, I went to her house to visit her parents. And they looked at me and they said, we are Sayyids. Okay? And you are what? Guyanese, right? We're Sayyids. And then he said, okay, but I'm a Muslim. He was practicing Islam then. He got serious too. And he sat there, and then the time came for, they said, would you like something to drink? And he said, yeah, I'll take some orange juice or some ginger ale. And they said, no, you want beer or whiskey? And he said, beer or whiskey? No. And so he didn't, you know, and they drank as though their Sayyid blood like purifies the booze, right? They drank. And then it was time for Salat. And he said, I have to make Asa. And they said, well, we're not clean, because they use that excuse all the time. We're not clean. And he stood up and he made Salat, and they sat there. And these are supposed to be Sayyids, right? And this is a new Muslim. And I explained to him that the blood is not enough. It's your practice. Because I found out, I traced this with some people from India. I'll go to a country now. And I said, where did your family become? Tell me the story of your family. And they said, you know what the truth is? A Sayyid, who was a family of the Prophet, came to our village. And he lived in our village. So everyone in the village took the name Sayyid. So if you trace their blood lineage back, that's like, you know, they have DNA, your family tree. They do not have blood of Arabs from Hashimi. Okay? Only the ones who married that Sayyid. So just because a person says they're Sayyid, it's not enough. So this is the point. Pride. You cannot be proud. You have to deal with this pride. But Sheikh Uthman Danfodio took it a step further. He said, in order to deal with pride, then we have to have a practical way of dealing with it. This is practical Ehsan now. Okay? How are you going to deal with pride? And he said, wear rough clothes sometimes. You don't have to wear beautiful clothes all the time and show off. No. Do work with regular people. Even if you think you're rich or you think you're special, mingle with everybody. And I'll give you a good example of this. And this is India again, because this is a good example. Some of my friends, they went to India, and they wanted to visit a scholar of Hadith, because there are many Hadith scholars in India. They have maintained very good Hadith scholarship. So they went to India to visit the Sheikh of Hadith, and they came into the house, and they sat down, and an elderly man came out, and he gave them water to wash their hands, right, the towel, got them, you know, seated, and he went back inside, and then they said, okay, where's the Sheikh? And 10 minutes later, the same elderly man came out with a turban on. See? And he said, I'm the Sheikh. So you see what he did? He was their slave first. You see, he was their slave. He served them first. You see what he was doing to his pride? Okay? That's a practical thing that he was doing, so that when he came back out with the turban, you see, he was dealing with this arrogance that everybody has, right? To recognize I'm only a human being like anybody else. You see, this is pride. And this is the practical form of tasawwuf for character building. This is how Sheikh Uthman Dan Fodio approached this with his followers. You have to be able to deal with this. Okay? Another one is ujub, and ujub is conceit. And some people are conceited. They think that their opinion is the best opinion, the only opinion. You know, it is a dangerous concept also, and it can lead the person also astray. Okay? And so, why am I conceited? When even the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ took, advice from other people. When the Muslims were attacked by the 10,000 Confederates, Ahzab, it was Salman al-Farisi who gave the idea to the Muslims to build a trench around the city. That's a Persian tactic. So he took the advice of a Persian man who just learned to speak Arabic, was not Sayyid, but he took his advice. You see? So this is how Sheikh Uthman dealt with this. Now, another area of purification, right? This is a practical thing that students you have to go through this in order to clean your heart, right? Your heart's got to be clean. Another area is ghadab. And ghadab is like anger or emotions, too much emotions. And when a man came to the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, the Prophet looked at him and said, La taghdab, 3 times. Don't get angry. He could see this man is a kind of like a nervous, like an angry person. So he said, don't get angry. So anger is a serious thing. And anger, this is what, it breaks up families. Husband and wife fight each other. It breaks up communities. Many of our communities, the leaders had a fight, and suddenly there's 2 masjids. And then these 2 can't get together, and suddenly there's 4. Right? You see it. I mean, I went to a place here, on the other side of town. I'm not going to say the nationalities. But I went to a place, they said, can you do the Jummah khutbah? I said, okay. So I came to do the khutbah, and I came inside of this masjid, and I looked 3 places down was another masjid. They're different tribes, but I said, okay, these are Muslims. They said, Yalla, brother Abdullah, come on. But I looked, and when we were going in, the fire engines were pulling up in front of the other place. Fire engines. And I said, brothers, let's help. They said, no, do the Jummah. So we did Jummah, and then we came out, and then afterwards I said to the brothers, like, what happened? And they said, we don't know. So like, this is your Muslim brothers, right? 3 places down, and fire engines are in front of their place, and you don't know? You see? That's a serious thing. And many times because of anger, the leaders don't like each other, and they start fighting each other. So that is the concept of ghadab. And ghadab is a serious thing. And Prophet Muhammad ﷺ said, and this is the training that he gave his followers, that Sheikh Uthman Dan Fodio gave his followers, right? Training from Sunnah. Anger is a big thing in our community, right? I know, I've seen some brothers, they're so angry with another brother, they said, I'm not even going to his janazah. So what is this, man? Like, why are you angry? You're not, in Sunnah, you should only be angry with a Muslim 3 days. That's all. You're not allowed to be angry with another Muslim. So ghadab is serious. And the Prophet ﷺ said, if you are angry, the emotions are boiling up in you. If you're standing up, sit down. This is practical. He said, if you're sitting down and your emotions are boiling up, lay down. If your emotions are boiling up, that isn't enough, then make wudu. Right? Like it's the flame of shaitan in you, like make wudu. right? This is from the Sunnah. It's from an authentic hadith. That when your emotions are taking you over, that's going to destroy your heart, right? Because the emotions will destroy your conscience. It will destroy everything inside of the person. I had a case of a brother and a sister, and I'm not going to say which country they came from. This is real, because we had a social service agency for Muslims, 10 years. And they came in my office. The sister was short, but fiery. And the brother was taller, strong, nice brother, easygoing. And she knew what would make him angry. So whenever they got into a fight, she would start saying things about him. Right? You small little man, you this, whatever. And he would get angry and then hit her. And so they said, how can we stop this violence? So my solution is go to the Sunnah, right? And especially for the brother, right? If you feel this thing coming up in you, sit down. If you're sitting down, lay down. Right? Otherwise, make wudu. I added another one on. If you still feel something, leave the room. But don't stay there. You have to stop the cycle of violence. And she recognized that she was part of the problem too, right? So I had to counsel her too. Like, why are you doing this to him? This is like masochism too. You almost want to get hurt. Why you make him angry like that? Maybe she has a reason. Don't. Try to avoid violence. So this is ghadab. This is ghadab. And it's a very serious issue. And these are 3 key issues of what is called tazkiyatun nafs. Many scholars call Ehsan tazkiyatun nafs. Okay, there are other scholars who use the word tasawwuf, right, for Ehsan. But basically it's the same. When you see what they actually talk about, it's the same, what they're actually doing. If they do sunnah, their sunnah will lead them to the same thing. And that's what we want the new Muslims, to be able to go to the sunnah, right? And to be able to judge Muslims, or not judge, but recognize Muslim, not by the names that they carry, but by what they do. Because that's the bottom line. So I want to open up the floor for any questions that you may have concerning this practical application of tasawwuf for character building. Tasawwuf for character building. Question?
So these are just some examples, right? What are some of the other things we should kind of look out for? Other areas where you can fall into this?
Yeah, so we're going to go through this process. Right, there's this section and then there's another section coming. So I want to take you through this so you can see what this ihsan is. Because, for Iman, for Islam, we know we're going to practice our fiqh, and, we know for Iman, we have aqidah, right? So we go into our faith, whatever. Ihsan, how can we go into our ihsan? Like, how can we better ourselves, the spiritual part of ourselves, our hearts? How can we better our hearts? Okay? So, floor is open for any questions anybody has concerning that. Yeah, floor is open.
So, like nowadays, there is, I don't hear myself practice on Ihsan, right? So, is it expected that most Muslims, they learn from their parents?
That's right. I mean, this is how Islam is passed on, generally. It's through the family. And sometimes, not just the family, maybe the village that you live in or the area, so you'll practice that. But the problem is that sometimes the family practices as not necessarily Islamic. Right? It's not, but it's just something that their tribe does or their people do. So you have to be able to separate that. Anything in the chat?
I don't see anything like
Okay. Yeah, so as a new Muslim, we have to be able to, separate people's cultural practices. And that is where you have Islam versus culture. Islam versus culture. Okay, so we have to separate the two. All right? So the floor is open for any other general questions anybody has. We're just going to check online here to see.
We do have a question here.
Yeah.
Is Sufism split into Muslim framework and Western framework? I reside in Cape Town and stumbled across a Sufi temple.
Okay, so the basic definition, again, this is a complicated area, but the basic definition, that I've found makes the most sense from these balanced scholars, is that there is a form of tasawwuf that is cautious, I call it sober, and it stays within Sharia. So in other words, it's just dealing with tazkiyat nafs, you're purifying yourself at Ehsan, whatever. Then there's another form of tasawwuf or Sufism, which is the more intoxicated form. And that is where the people are trying to do wahdatul wujud. They're trying to elevate their souls into Allah. And that comes from Buddhism and Hinduism and other extreme forms of faith. And so it came into Islam. And so they do this thing. Some of them whirl around in circles. Some of them beat themselves, or they may, not eat food for a long time, or, they punish their bodies. But that's really out of Buddhism and Hinduism. And you even have some groups who say they're Sufis, but they're not Muslims. The same way that you have groups that developed in the 60s with the hippies and now New Age people. So they have the Krishna people, and they chant Krishna, Krishna, Rama, Rama. Like Hindu, it's just chants. And they eat, they're vegetarians, and they live a lifestyle. So there are groups, even here now in the GTA, there are groups like this where they use Islamic dhikr, remembrance of Allah. They're not Muslims, but they chant in Arabic. And they have organizations. Those are not, that's the intoxicated extreme form. And in most cases, they're not even Muslims. So in Cape Town itself, there are people who are following fiqh, but there are some extreme groups also that is there, like in other parts of the world. No.
One more question. Do we need to have allegiance to a specific sheikh to have allegiance to the Prophet, peace be upon him?
Yeah, okay. Again, I'm not going into the details of, this is not a tasawwuf class, right? We're just dealing with ihsan. And so within their teachings, they, the way it formed in many parts of the world is that they formed what they call tariqah, or a family, based on a chain, a silsila of knowledge, secret knowledge, that goes back to either Ali or Abu Bakr. And the sheikh is supposed to have this secret knowledge. And so you join this group, you take an oath to that scholar in order to get into the secret knowledge. My response, and Allah knows best, you don't have to do that to be a practicing Muslim. No. You do not have to have allegiance like that. That's extremism. Because ihsan, tazkiyat nafs, is right there, in the Sunnah, right there in Islamic teachings. You don't have to be part of a secret underground group in order to get purification. It's right there in the Sunnah. Okay? There's other ways of doing it. Okay? And it's safer too, because if you go into a place with secret knowledge, how do you know where that knowledge came from? Like you ask him, where did you get it from? And he says, well, I had a dream last night. Right? That's where you got it from. No. For us, especially new Muslims, reviving Muslims, we need to have authentic Islam. Remember our scholar, what he said. You have to authenticate your faith. That's one of the first things you need to do. Authenticate your faith. So if somebody's coming to you with secrets and cannot authenticate it, don't go there. Don't go. I don't care how long his beard is, how tall his cap is. Don't go. because all practice is the bottom line. Now, floor is open for any other general questions anybody may have. Yeah.
Does the Sunnah say anything about raising your voice against someone else?
You're not supposed to raise your voice to your parents. That's definitely. And generally speaking, the Quran says, "Inna ankala aswat la sawtul hamir," that the worst sound is the braying of the donkey. Right? Sawtul hamir. So somebody's screaming, they're like a donkey making noise, right? You know how ugly a donkey sounds, right? It's an ugly sound. Yeah? That's the Quran, very specific. So screaming and arguing, no, this is not an Islamic way. And you'll generally find that people who practice Islam, no matter where it is, they tend to be more reserved. They're not loud, boisterous, cantankerous, type of people. Some people have a character like that. And I'm not blaming them for that. But generally, when Prophet Muhammad ﷺ was very calm. And he never even laughed like, laughing on the ground. Never did that. Never. Because he's thinking about day of judgment's coming, right? Like he has the overview of life. So that's not to mean that we have to be depressed. Because the Prophet ﷺ smiled and he liked, he had fun. That nothing wrong with that. Have a positive nature, right? But making too much noise, is not an Islamic thing to do. Now, other questions? Any other general questions here? So we're going to be following this formula. I'm going to leave the class a little early tonight in case somebody wanted to go downstairs to catch part of what is happening. And I have to go across town to pick up somebody, now and pray there. So inshallah, we will continue on with practical applications of Ehsan. Because we need to know what is Ehsan and how to purify yourself. So I leave you with these thoughts, and I ask Allah to have mercy on me and you. Wa akhir da'wana alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.